First off, I want to start off and let you know that
I know because that went by the park. Nobody can.
I see him.
unable to make it today. And just for your information, his mom died just before Christmas, and she stayed with him for about a year. And he basically took care of her the whole time, and it was quite a burden on him. And he's up right now. He's up in Clearwater, cleaning out her apartment. And it's, I spoke to him, and he's like all broken up. All the memories of his life are there, and he just couldn't get it together to come to the meeting. But he did ask me to pass a message on to you, and I will. Please give my regards to the wonderful group of friends we share at the committee. And if you would please tell them I send my regards and my regrets for not being there. Thank you, Mike. And he meant it sincerely. And he also expressed in our conversation that he didn't care to be chair anymore. He also endorsed that Bill Perez be the next chair. He wanted to endorse him when the time does come for us to vote. That would be his choice if he wasn't here. And I wanted to pass that on. So with that, let's go ahead and do the pledge of allegiance and flag. I can say that. Gary, if you would lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We could have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Please be seated. We can go ahead and do the roll call. Let's see, Larry's here. Gary here, Martha, me, Judy, William, Judy, Perez, and the rest are gone. Any public comments? Nobody from the public.
Just so, do we have someone that's designated to take minutes?
Good point.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
The best way to do what we do in the past is just go down the agenda and make the notes along the agenda.
I do that anyway.
Okay, great. Okay, the next order of business, any deferrals, additions, deletions?
Yes.
Additions? Bill?
That
We're not gonna be able to vote.
that would require a vote, so that would require action. Adding something to the agenda would require action, which you don't have form to do.
What if it was already cited in a previous minute and it was voted on? And it's
Yeah, we're not gonna
in the
vote.
minutes
Yeah, we're not
that
gonna
we're
vote.
gonna do it this month.
But it's not, and so therefore.
That's the reason why it should be an addition, because it was already voted on in the minutes of December.
I completely understand, and I get what you're saying, but adding anything to this agenda as circulated to the public requires a vote.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
there's no
Well,
forum
it
for that
just
action. But I
seems strange that it's already been submitted and has been distributed to the public in the minutes from December.
But it's the agenda that, yeah.
Okay.
I get you.
The next meeting, we'll bring it up and be sure it's on.
Well, we're getting late, so.
We can't review and adopt the minutes because we have the same thing that requires a vote, correct?
Correct.
Excuse me?
Review and adopt the minutes that require. a vote.
Correct.
Committee elections, that also.
Yeah.
that also requires a vote.
This is gonna be a really quick meeting. That's why I chose.
I don't know.
That's why you want. That's why you gotta be smart when you pick to do notes.
We're already meeting them quick. That's what my wife said. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Anyway, so I didn't say that. Okay, and whole business.
I'm gonna add that to the record though.
Forget about that.
Larry's wife said it'd be too quick.
Okay,
Here's one.
do we have any other old business? Let's start off with item A. We have a little bit of a more, we talked about the 5K run that we just had. I got, in my opinion, it was a tremendous success. And we basically owe the majority of all the work that went into that to one person that's sitting here in this room. That's going to give us a debriefing on that. And I want to recommend that.
It was only me. There was a lot of us, I had a lot of everything. A lot. And you guys too. Thank you. It was fun. I'm kind of still hungry to it. So I passed out some notes. I worked on a little debrief for everybody to just kind of look through and this is what to do to put into the books for next year and eternity. So, I think there's just things we could obviously improve, we took a little too long to start up, so I kind of needed a little more of a timeline, and this could be fine tuned more. I think maybe I could have a meeting with our staff and just go back and forth with what they did, what we did, and hopefully even get this fine tuned for whoever is the person that does this year. So I mean, look, I think we need to lock in a race date.
Am I allowed that?
Yeah.
What do you mean planning took too long to start up? You're talking about inter staff coordination?
I just think like the whole thing between nailing down the vendor and then nailing down dates, and I think that we just needed to move it about a month, 3 weeks to a month earlier to really get into the crunchy crunch that it got really crunchy at the end.
When started late.
More crunchy for my team.
What month do you recommend it start?
I recommend we lock in the date by June,
Okay.
and then as soon as we've locked in that date, let's contact previous sponsors to see, to give them the first opportunity for all levels and all the things. Then appoint a committee chair and a subcommittee. And I think in the subcommittee, our subcommittee was awesome, Larry and Michael, you guys were great. And I know this committee, subcommittee, we were instructed to keep small. But I think for how many moving parts this event had, I think we need more than 2 or 3 of us, but just with very specific duties so that we're not, hashing out every subcommittee meeting. It's not about hashing out. It's about, okay, what'd you do? How are you doing with this, and this? So like signing on the sponsors, you need a sponsor person. I think that's ideal. And that would be the person that's the liaison between the sponsors. Of course, we have companies that we're friends with, and that would be, okay, you got your friend, turn him over, we'll get it done. But I think mostly a centralized person that just does sponsors, because it's a lot of work to get sponsors and to deal with sponsors and to get what you need to get from the sponsors. And I have the last sheet, there's kind of like the sponsor sheet. It's always a working sheet that I had. Actually, I don't have a real count, somewhere around 20. We need to have at least 15 to 20 on-site sponsors. There are,
Going back to the sponsors, last year, this is not for a voting issue, just for the parking. But last year, after the Jingle Bell Jog, the year before we had that, one of the things we did that I thought was a nice touch, and I believe you were the reciprocant that wanted it, was to give out a trophy, a plaque, something for the office of the sponsors to acknowledge and to thank them for their sponsorship. And it's something like that I hope we would think about and maybe discuss it further at our next meeting.
yeah, that's on the agenda actually after meeting acknowledgements. So I guess that was something we're supposed to be discussing.
Okay, I wrote that down.
Thank you for that. Yeah, yes, I still have mine on my desk from 2019. So 15 to 20 on-site sponsors. I know a lot of the sponsors that I was able to sign up, a lot of them were not local. They just were all about supporting our veterans. So, and I'll go after them again, no problem. But I think just to have a robust event where there's on-site activities and activations, I think having 15 to 20 really there is going to be good just for the event. And then 2 to 3 in kind, we had 2 or 3. We had Chick-fil-A, and we had the Thai Express. They were really, really great. And then we did the water sponsor, so we kind of had 3. A warm-up sponsor, I would recommend that we would give the first opportunity to Sweat 440 just to be considerate since they were this year.
Yeah.
I would also revamp the commitment levels for next year as well for the sponsors. And I think there's more value in being the warm-up sponsor, and there's more value to be the video sponsor. So I think we need to add that to raise more money, because it's a great thing for the gyms to do. And those 2 gyms really showed up, and there were a lot of participants from both. They were great. I know that Caution really wanted to be the warm-up, but he didn't sign up, and the other one signed up first. So we'll give them the consideration and then go from there. Probably work a little harder on that. Even maybe somebody's better with the Grams. The Grams run the fitness club in Miami Lakes, right? So maybe somebody that's with them. I mean, I know they've been involved. I just don't know them, and I had my hands full with what I was doing, so there was no other reason than that I didn't go to them. I just felt like we were gymmed up, but I don't think it would hurt to have 3 gyms, because that's where people run and are athletic, and we'll have more runners. So logistics, we had a park map that I have and it was great, but I think now we can go and get a little better with that. Let's make little tents and let's configure the tents and put them where they're gonna be on the map, like really, like a real
Aerial
like a
control.
real shot of what it looks like, and then once we start, signing the sponsors, I think either we figure out to put it by level of commitment where their priority is, it's kind of not, it's not really a big deal, I don't think placement, it has something like, more so I would be more just alert and aware that you don't put gyms together next to each other, like, swirl them up, but then I guess if we see that there's like a more ideal spots, we'll do that in order of the level of commitment to like give the spots. But I think a really nice layout that's just really makes you feel what it looks like, because I was really lost until the end. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now when I was there. And then for them in the morning would be even better, because once we do have those tents set on the thing, we can put their logos on the tents, and then we can start giving that to each sponsor with their logo on the roof of the tent, like in the layout, so they know where they're gonna go, and kind of just gives them a little more ownership right off the bat. Or when somebody's going to sell these sponsorships to more businesses that didn't participate, bring the layout, and as soon as you can start getting logos on them, oh, there's only 3 left on this side, like start creating some buzz and some call to action so you can get some more sponsors in, because there's no reason to not get more sponsors. It was when I started cold calling, I hit a couple and got them, and it's not hard. This is a great community. So I would recommend that. And then a logistics, so you have a sponsor subcommittee member, a logistics subcommittee member, and that person's going to be, more directly involved with morning of signing volunteers to specific tasks. We kind of had a little bit of confusion. I know I was running around like a lunatic, and I had my parts guys there that were bringing the water. They helped move tents. Like if they weren't there, and we didn't have a lot of committee members there that day, I know everybody kind of had something going on, which it happens. But I think we need to have like a real boots on the ground for sure for that morning, so that all those little loose ends are nice. And I think from the perspective of the participants, they didn't really see it, but to me, I was like freaking out a little bit. I'm just a little more like in advance. And anyway, communication with the community, we need somebody that is in the subcommittee, that's their job, to create buzz with the community, with the other committees, with organizations, with schools, and other town events. So I think there needs to be one person that just leads that part of the effort to get the runners in. Package pickup dates, let's establish that before the site is live, get it on there, get the times. It's really specific, because we had people showing up at headquarters. We fixed it, but some people already saw that it was like the Thursday and Friday, and we changed it to only Friday. So when I was out of town, there were people showing up at my store, but they knew what to do, and then we couldn't give them the numbers because they weren't there yet. Ruben didn't have the numbers there yet, so we couldn't even run it early. We tried. A bag stuffing team, so I was very fortunate, was able to, my HR girl can like find people out of the woodworks to fill bags. It took, we stuffed all 700 bags, and it took a couple of days of about, I would say, like 8 people or 10 people worked on it for a good maybe 10-15 hours of time. So something to consider, how many people need to really be ready for that, just in case. Then going to social media, targeted marketing, we got a little bit scrambly at the end. Larry found a company, and I actually put it in, but they didn't bring it. And I tried to find them, and they don't really have a website. It's been weird. There are, I know they're out there. If it's not us, if you're not going to put it to a third party, my marketing company did it for us. And I mean, they do car sales, which is great. I think that finding a social media targeted marketing budget, probably around $1,500 with vendors that are specifically that's all they do is market and do these specific campaigns to runners to get more paid real runners in for the run. Yeah. Yeah, really wide. Yeah, people come from everywhere. They'll come from Palm
Real
Beach.
runners?
Yeah, they go everywhere.
Oh,
And then the social media plan for the town's social media, I think a lot of coordination together with the committee and the sponsors, so that we can do a lot of organized cross social posts together, like plan it. Okay, so Friday the 12th, we're going to do one, and give sponsors a deadline. Or actually, when I have more in there about sponsor deadlines, because I think we get most their stuff up front, so that then the town, so you guys have it, and we don't have to be scrambling and waiting, and we'll leave that out for next week, and you'll have what you need, and we can plan that whole targeted campaign on your end to be able to include all the sponsors that have paid up to date, and have some, some decent posts.
Information or get something on sponsor. a lot of the sponsors that need time, especially towards the end of the year, their budget has already been worked up, so the earlier you
Oh,
give them
we have in there
and
that
you
we
reach
have-
them out,
They're gonna be.
They're better-
the
better on
sponsors.
the lot, because that way they get free time. Like tomorrow, I'm meeting with a big sponsor
Mhm.
for the American Legion. But I'm going to be talking about also here.
I think what Judy was referring to more was to get the runners, and I think the town has a pretty good idea how that works with the algorithms. and How important it is to hit like on it so that it spreads and the next person gets it. And they understand it, they got it, and we do too. And I think together next year, we won't slam it. I mean, we just know what we're doing.
So Gary, you beat me to it. On the next page, I want to lock in sponsors by August. And that will give plenty of time to get in the budget still before third quarter gets crazy. And then give them a 45-day race deadline for swag. But logos need to be submitted with the sign up. Just, you know, for the shirts, for the targeted, so you can get organized, creative, and you have it. You're not like, oh, I just bolt this one in, and so it's easier and cleaner for you guys. And then I'm gonna add the user donate booth to the sponsor sheet, because I still see that we'll get some more sponsors that will donate their booths or that they don't need a booth. T-shirts ordered by October, or if the delivery would allow them for 30 days to arrive before the race, need to be organized with sizes. I think we had another issue with sizes. I kind of had to guess at the point. And we didn't have a lot of runners signed up when we were ordering the shirts, so it was a little bit of both things. So we'll get with the shirt vendor, get that sweet spot to get us out as far as we can, but not put us into a freak out that we're not gonna get the shirts on time, but get as many close to sizes as what we're looking for that's coming from the signups.
But I have one thing there,
Mhm.
antlers.
And antlers.
Yeah, I mean, last year we missed the antlers because we didn't do it to the last minute. And most of the sources, you need to have 60-day to 90-day lead time in order to get them in, and they come in really cheap, like $2. So anyway, next year we're at.
Well,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, those
it's just a
things.
little cute thing. It
We
was.
want you to wear it.
No, that's drag, I'll say.
Where when we go hunting.
Yeah, we'll add any antlers or any costume pieces, we'll put those in early in advance. The thing is, it gets tricky when you go too early. You don't know, I mean, we'll get into the goals and let's see. All right, committee chair needs to access the sign up site from day one and provide donation links, so that will really help so that person can hand out the link to or watch and, you know, make sure everything's happening. Stay on top of what needs to be ordered, as far as shirt sizes or amount of people, so we can also use that with our third party or whoever's gonna do the social, so that they can know when we're falling short, if we need to run specials.
How do you recommend we do that? I mean, so what, are you gonna have like a QR code on the card with a little reindeer thing, or they pass out to possible sponsors? Or what do you?
No, that was like the back end tool, so that like they shared it with me very close to the end, so I had it, so I could see how many people were signing up every day. And see where we're at with sizes, because there was a spot on there for size of shirt.
And something I want to mention now that you're saying that, that's actually a perk to us using that vendor, the fact that we have that back-end access. I really just want to highlight that, because if we were to go back to, for example, the old vendor, there was no back-end, as I've mentioned before to some of you, like, we wouldn't have access to that. We'd be waiting on that person to respond and let us know what those numbers were.
Okay,
So that's just a handy tool that came with this vendor.
okay. I was looking at other vendors. I actually was on City of Claremont today. Their police are doing like for the Fallen 5K in March, and they provide, that vendor provides it as well. They do runs all over Florida. So there's a lot of them out there that do this. I don't know how happy or unhappy I would say that I was with the vendor. I mean, I think he did his job. I think the expectations weren't really in line in the beginning. I was more expecting something that wasn't what his deal was. It wasn't like the other thing. Everything was 100% different. So, I mean, knowing what I know, what he does, we can work with that now that, you know, we don't have expectations that are unrealistic. I think that we
Would it be
should,
worthwhile to, what were those expectations? So we kind of create a list of expectations that they were not able to do or incapable to do.
they just, I mean, I think I expected a lot more things, and he was a race timer. He was going to provide the bibs. He was going to provide, he ordered the medals for us if we asked him to, and he did. That wasn't part of it. I mean, we had to tell him to do it, but It was,
I think that's something though that he mentioned from the beginning, that if we wanted him to order metals, that he could help us. There are certain
Right.
things that he could help us with, and obviously there's a lot more detail to this, but it's just. The basics of it is that the old vendor owned the race, the Jingle Bell Cup.
Jingle Bell.
Yeah.
He owned the race, that race happens across all different cities, not just Miami Lakes. But because he owns the race, he puts on the race entirely.
Does
He owns the
social, he does
database.
everything.
He owns a database, for example, where if he wanted to promote the Miami Lakes race that we contracted him to come put on, he would blast it to his, let's say he has 1 million contacts across all the United States, he would blast it. We had the disadvantage because we went with a vendor that was gonna put on a race for us that we own now, right? It was our race this year. The disadvantage there was that we had no database to work off of, because previously we used the other guy, and he owned that data. Now we're not paying him, he's obviously not gonna handle it.
What was the rationale for the change? Why did we change them?
Well, we had to, when last year, or the previous year, we were about to start with him because that's who we had originally been
You
using.
had a 3-year contract with him and he was
The
contracted.
problem is that there was kind of like a breach in contract, something around those lines. We had the attorney look into it. I'm sure he can give you a legal explanation. But he was just not being responsive. Like, we couldn't get the race started because it was just really bad communication. So because of that delay, and I'm sure mixed with COVID and everything that was going on, we didn't get to put on the race, and that's when we decided, okay, we need to switch gears, because if we're gonna be waiting on this person, we're just not gonna be able to have it. And that's how we found this new vendor, whose services differ a little.
It's like,
Yeah,
he did Doral and
he does whatever race you want him to put on, kind of, but it's your race. That's the difference. And with that comes, obviously, the other guy has expertise of the same race that he puts on
Right.
over and over again. This guy kind of adjusts based on what we need. But that also gives us a little more, how do you say it? Like,
Control, ownership.
it gives us more control,
But he didn't have to
but
walk in.
because of that, it's more work. Really, it's more the heavier load it is on the committee and staff versus the other.
the other one
vendor.
even like provided the police, the barriers, everything, everything.
So here's just like piecing together.
Yeah, we can't go back to the other one
He's like,
because of the issue with the breach of contract.
no, he's coming back.
That would,
He's
that's a
out.
legal question.
I spoke with him. He had an issue with the town of Miami Lakes and he wasn't interested.
They would never do it.
Okay.
Yeah, we called because we were trying to figure out if we could just split with him we were trying to get like a few 100 more runners and we would split some commission with him or whatever. And he's like, I'm out. I'm like, all right,
The problem is handling the database that we have.
but you have the database, right?
Now,
You
so
have
that's
it,
part
you
of
kept
it.
it,
We
you got
start
it.
from, we started from zero, but now that we have access to that back end, now we have a database that we started.
Okay, good.
And you still have it, like,
And it's,
you still have it, right? You
yeah,
downloaded
we
it
have
into your
access
stuff.
to it.
So if you just grow and grow and grow.
The idea is that we grow it very organically. It's our people.
Yeah.
Can you download it? So just in case it's not looked up from you and you have it, like get it in your own stuff and get it off of his
I'm gonna
thing.
send it to you, so you have a copy of
This
what we ended up with.
company that we're dealing with now, who does Doral or what have you. Is there a way that we can link up to the databases or?
No,
put it
he
together?
doesn't do it. It's not really him, like he gives the software, but he's not dealing with any of
So
that.
that's like us giving our runners away then to
Right,
his other clients. It's just not the way that works.
so it can be shared, as long as we run the same base. Because runners, they run all the time.
No, it's not part of his.
I mean, if he's doing it at Doral and Doral has that document, it is a public record and you're free to ask Doral.
That's what I'm trying to,
As a
I'm trying to
public
get,
record.
that's what I'm trying,
I mean, that's the workaround.
so that's why I'm.
But
Bring it
if
up.
Doral requests.
And they have 1,000 or more
We
than
have to do
1,000.
that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right,
It can be
somebody,
shared.
if somebody says, you know, I want to see your range your run database.
Yeah, we
It's a
can-
public
We
record,
can share it, yeah.
you know,
can be
you have to comply.
Yep.
But, you know, that's an idea, just keep it.
It's a real good idea.
And there's no personal information in that database.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is. That's why this
It's
is
got
so
age, it's
valuable.
got everything.
Yeah.
that's
Age,
why
number,
we-
email.
Are we required
The
to
privacy
protect,
statement.
yeah, some kind of privacy act required to
There's,
protect some private information?
They have to check off, I know our attorney checked, there's like a waiver, like
Yes,
a
a
check.
waiver.
I'm looking at page share.
It's a waiver, yeah. It's a waiver,
Everything
yeah.
has a waiver.
So I
Same thing
would,
with the.
I wouldn't broadcast.
Question, when you go online, like to check your time, you know, when you on that website, Can you look on a website for the run and see everyone that was in it, or you have to look up the individual?
Yeah, look at that side,
I don't understand what you're asking, sorry.
like just to see the whole
Yeah,
result.
there was a website you could go to after the race, and you could look up have your name listed and what your time was. My question is there a website that lists all the runners in that race? Maybe that's something we missed, I don't know.
That's in our database. That's our database.
You can ask him, but the database has everybody's.
It's all down there.
Yeah, the times are on here.
Well, obviously from previous.
So you're asking about the public.
Yeah, I know the one.
You mean other municipalities, other runs?
I would imagine,
Usually they, yeah, but I mean, we can't confirm 100%, that depends on the other place.
I would imagine it's one database with lots of windows to look at it differently.
The good news.
When you log into the website and you go to a menu item, it goes to the database, which has everything, and pulls up what you asked for from the database.
You can work from database to
Which
bring and give you what you're looking for. I want to see from A to Z.
It was available.
I want to see about date of birth. or-
Well, the good news is, it's only said we start in June this year, and we don't wait till the end. Actually, I believe Jingle Bell Jog wants to start 9 months out. If we start in June, we're 5 months out, but even sooner, we'll have plenty of time to do all these things, and we won't be rushed like you
Just
said.
and just a little background on that, when we initially met with the vendor, that was his recommendation, 9 months out.
Yeah.
And that's from his experience putting on the other races.
So
We work fast.
All right, well, that's, what's 9 months out?
March.
March. We're later, right?
we're almost there. All right,
Yeah.
let's move at 9. That's good. I mean, I think I felt like we had 4 or 5, so 9 is really beautiful. I think you can only do so much until you get to a certain point, but knowing your dates to do it, it feels a lot better, believe me. That'll make it just.
Yeah, I don't think he means like you have to have everything locked down. 9 months in, we're just starting to think about, I guess, like ideas or anything you want to add to it and just. You know, get the conversation going.
We just for adding information, we had in this room 2 class winners. Colonel Perez here cleaned them up, and he was grease lightning in the 55 to 60-year-olds, and he just, nobody even came close. And I won across the elderly people, 70 to 75. My only competition, they were in walkers, you know.
If our granny's
Wheelchair.
slower, I would have gone back.
Carried it.
But the girl.
But I mean, apparently my smallest one was enough.
He was coming out saying, I'm okay. I'm the one who got him in because they raised a lot.
My girlfriend won
Three daughters,
her age group too.
3 daughters, and.
It was hilarious. We were having breakfast and I get this text.
Substitute teaching. I'm okay. The mom.
Yeah, he did.
A couple of women. So they called it up.
I had picked up the other couple of miles. I picked up the other one.
Younger than beat the bar.
Oh.
They didn't go, we're digressing.
Okay, so I would
Okay.
I would also recommend weekly meetings with staff and subcommittee members like Zooms, just to, we'll have checkpoints. I mean, not meeting their meetings, we'll have an agenda for what we need to do, make sure we're on the same page, so everybody's just on time and doing what we need to do. 2 to 3 weeks before the race, send out the early map, we already talked about that. Instructions for setup, entry spot to park. We think we were a little closer than a week to that, and I had something calling me, so I think if we can get 3 weeks before, that's ideal to have that whole thing, which I think we will with this whole layout and overlay that we're gonna have already done. I think it's gonna be easy and ready to go, and now we know what we're doing. The band was great, but it didn't keep the crowd, so I don't recommend doing the band again. I just.
But it was only 6.
Yeah, I would recommend that, but I don't know if we need a showmobile for trophy presentation. I don't think we do. I'm thinking maybe we could do the trophies over at the start finish line with the race runner with his PA and just do it all over there. And I would like to still bring a marching band again and have a more of a set list for him. He did so good. That was so fun with him, and they did that that ESPN thing, that football thing. It was so good. But we'll give him more, or whatever marching band chooses to come and join us. I thought that had a lot of energy. It was good. I think everybody enjoyed it. It was in a great spot over there. We would need the showmobile. So I think scratching a band and scratching a showmobile, unfortunately, unless the band played earlier over there by where the marching band was, and I think it's just too many bands. The mascot meet and greet went well. Like everybody loved that. We had a lot of people at the second repeat with the mascots. So I don't know if we're gonna have more mascots, that it makes it relevant, but if it does, I think we should do it again.
Does the PA and the microphone used by the race director? I can figure out the difference.
Okay.
We can always, and I'm further limited, we can always ask if they have a better system, so that's something to note for next year, but if they don't, we can always amplify the sound. bringing in our, production company that we use, a vendor that we use.
I mean, that would be good worthwhile. I mean, because I know I think he said, please rise for the national anthem. And the national anthem started playing. I went to attention, a few people did around me. And then, but a lot of people were just taking selfies and picking their nose and talking to each other while the national anthem played. And, I mean, that's a combination of two things, first part is no one gets taught civics anymore and, patriotism. And the other part is, you don't catch people's attention because the PA wasn't loud enough to make, people realize what was about to happen,
Maybe they have speakers and different.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't mad at the folks, not because,
Did they do, that structure that we do for the culinary bike tour?
There was a thing for over.
They had their own type of.
It was big,
It's an inflatable?
Yeah.
That was right in front of his tent. The petting zoo agri-science showcase went really good. I would move it closer to the sponsors next time so that people can see, because they had people, they were constantly full of people looking at that. I want to do that again.
We just keep in mind that we only have about 2 spots where we can put the petting, so we're kind of limited with that. Just
Okay.
because of the animals and the grass and all of that. But
Is there a
we
place
can try
that's
the
closer?
other area.
Is it closer?
Yeah,
in sight?
it was, I think it's like below the trees too, though. So we can just walk it with the Parks Director next week
Okay.
and see what
So
feels better.
Okay. So I just put some goals that I thought were realistic for next year. If you see the last sheet, I kind of have a little kind of tally of what we ended up, where we ended up getting. So we're at about 45,550 in sponsored dollars, which this all needs to still be chewed up with the town. I'd like to kind of reconcile and see where you guys ended up and where my numbers are. But 45,550 in sponsored dollars, $10,079 in donations and registrations, would give us revenue of 55,600, and then kind of estimated expenses. So the net estimated proceeds from this race were about 31,784, somewhere around there. I don't know, there's probably more expenses I don't have, so it's probably a little less. And then going into goals for this year for 2023, at least 50,000 in sponsored dollars, 700 runners with 15,000 revenue. I think we can have more confidence in our revenue for our runners and, and not have to go too much slashing of prices. I still think that comp slots for students are great. I think we should just, along with having our 700 runners or our 600 runners, I still think we should have comp slots for students. They don't have the money, they're runners, they're there, they bring their parents, they bring, the people who are coming to the event. And then I would say that our net proceeds goal for the next one should be a little bit over $40,000. I think doing that early, offer more early promotions early on, because the earlier that we have some set up, the more we can plan and not purchasing if we don't need. And early sign up discounts, maybe things like 2 adults get 2 kids free. When I was looking at that, race that's in Claremont in March, they have like if you get 3 runner registrations, it'll automatically like give you a $5 discount off the 3rd one or something like that. So things like that are cool, to bring in families, and it gives the family a little break, and it makes them more, more likely to come with 4 people in their family. Things it gets a little more affordable. And I guess also we need to really get busy on selecting a benefactor, which we can't do today for this year. And then I think we need to set up for next year right away as well. At least before anything goes in writing, we need to figure that out and get it done. So it's all over everything.
One note on the dollars. I think we'll have a real true amount by February, only because, and this is a disclaimer, something to keep in mind just across the year for any of your events or activity. The way we reconcile stuff, the finance and budget and all that, when we use a credit card statement, we have to wait for that credit card statement to close. And as you know, that's about a month and a half process. Once we receive it, we have to reconcile, and then that gets entered into our system. So for that reason, there may be a delay in numbers right now. So by February, you should have a real true number of what the actual expenses of the dollars that came in and how that balances out. And I think then we can have like a real dollar amount to the sense of what was raised.
So
a
by
little
our
disclaimer there.
February meeting, we're gonna have the final numbers from the town.
Awesome.
Hopefully, our February meeting is still the 2nd, so.
You know, what's amazing, Judy,
So-
you not only did a great job of everything you
Yeah,
did at the
it
event,
is.
but even after, you've given us a blueprint for next year. It's awesome. We've never, since I've been involved with the committee a few years now, we've never really had a blueprint for an event. It's to do the following year. We've been kind of flying by the seat of our pants and doing it as we go. Now we pretty much have direction. It should be a lot easier. We should do a lot more effective next year. I mean, it's just awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so, thanks. I think that's-
Yeah.
Also, Jonathan, could you send me the template for the meeting? Yes.
When the next item on the
Last
agenda,
question I have on this.
yes,
Can I just add this as an attachment to the meeting notes?
Yes.
Thank you.
good idea.
We'll also share with the town clerk's office since it was
No,
distributed.
it's on my, there's already on staff.
If you want to do the chair. Anyway,
And I'll add some stuff to it that we'll discuss.
yeah, but again, Judy, that was just awesome. I'm looking forward next year to working for you and your committee.
Yes.
2 to 3 in-kind sponsors, fruit, smoothie. There's one company who was at the December 23rd luncheon that we had.
Uh-huh.
It was awesome. They have empanadas, fresh orange, juices.
Great.
Other drinks.
Oh, well, great.
You're in a
You
special committee.
already know them.
You're the sponsor.
You can add.
Can't make any decisions today, though. Thanks.
That was pretty good.
Thank
I
you.
mean,
And-
one of the sponsors, they, and their employees were the volunteers who were
Oh,
working
that's
there.
nice.
I already have an idea who's gonna be in our sponsorship team. Pedro. And, and then you bring in whoever you brought in, but Pedro seems to be able to shake down folks for money.
Judy, I don't know if I see it here or if I missed it. I think in terms of your goals, something that you guys can add, I know that. And again, I know it was like a learning curve here,
Mhm.
but the amount that you're gonna price it at. Because I know like at first people felt strongly about the 40 and then not so much,
I
and then
think 40 is
yes,
so
and then
much.
back and forth, so. Just
30.
something for you guys to discuss
Okay.
early on.
Yep. Nice.
And really just feel confident with that number.
You make more with numbers than with the price.
But it's also important back to the beneficiaries, because that can help people, makes them feel better about paying a little more sometimes.
No, don't look at that from that point.
You know, the way I look at it is, that's a good point, Jonathan. Yeah. If you bring more people in, because they have a lower cost, I can tell you, the first thing after running that few miles, I wanted to go eat breakfast, so I went right to Casablanca. The people who were the 600 people probably went, I'm going to Einstein's Bagel, I'm going to this place, all around our neighborhood, you know what I mean? But that was one aspect of keeping the price to draw them in. And so when they, we didn't feed them enough. We fed them enough for them to be hungry.
Dude, I went to Casablanca 6 times and we do our Christmas parties with them. They usually
Yeah.
like give us the pork and everything for 300 people. I
Yeah.
went there every time. I went with the owner of my company where he was really talking smack. I'm like, what's going on? I just said little pieces of
No,
tortilla.
you don't want them to feed them full a lot.
Well, tortilla, no, I want to make him a little
It
piece
was
of
perfect
tortilla.
what you guys had. You had that little, although I was straight down, I thought it was actually chicken.
Well, I told him
You don't
not
put
to fry
fruit in the Chick-fil-A can, that's unconstitutional.
They were great, but
But they were
I told
great.
you I bring tortillas, so I mean, that was an idea, one healthy thing you can get out of a nice Cuban restaurant, like a tortilla.
No,
for
but it
breakfast.
worked perfectly, because what I'm saying is, these folks then all went, right after the race, that's why no one hung out. They went local, to eat, because they did 3 miles and they wanted to stuff their faces. And I think that's a,
So maybe this fun, like the food, the
That helps
lunch, we
with-
can bring in like a
that helps
coupon and they
with-
can.
Well, I'm saying that we
sponsor the
keep-
swag bag.
I'm
go eat.
agreeing with you.
Yeah,
that-
that's it.
Yes, we have coupons for local restaurants, right, part of the swag bag, and we pointed out to them.
Not
in the
Casablanca,
announcement, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, great idea, and I wasn't even thinking about that. But I
That'll
think we
be
keep
the
the price low because we're bringing in businesses to the community, and I think that's really a big draw.
Any more on the reindeer run?
Nope.
And that was awesome. Okay, the next item, item B, acknowledgements for sponsors, Veterans Park Parade and Reindeer Run. Something we can't vote on right now, but again, we can think about it for the next meeting. And also for the Veterans Parade, the same thing I would think we want to do for sponsor there. Anybody having to add to that?
Don't forget the guys that brought those vehicles, because people really like going on them, and I didn't really deal with them, they came, I guess, did you bring them or did Mike bring them? Those cool, like.
We have a little
those
Jeep
tiny
with,
things.
the
No, I think Mike dealt with that. The two vehicles.
I don't know.
Typically come to the veterans rate because they were screwed up with insurance thing.
I know.
What do we need to do? What do we need to do to get to the contract on Ukraine? I mean, they were like the biggest hit in the race.
Insurance, right?
Well,
They just need to sign a waiver. That's it.
Every-
What they told me, I spoke to
They just
the
need to
president,
sign a
and he
paper.
said that, well, they're each person is an individual. They're not a group, they're not, I mean, each person has their own car insurance, have their own thing. And one person can't be responsible for the whole group.
So
And
then
the way
each person should be responsible for their own.
each person has to sign a waiver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, whatever it is, we can get it out to them ahead of time.
Well, I mean, I mean, we should do that. One of the things that, if we want to get military support for community relations, community, activity, like the Veterans Day Parade. I used to work those kind of requests all the time, but earlier you do it, if you want, Humvees, or if you want MTVRs, or if you want Dragon Wagons, we're not gonna roll, tank.
You guys have mentioned as well, elected officials, and I don't mean local, I mean,
No, I'm talking about if you go to the INI unit or the United States, the US Marine Corps INI Inspector Unit, they have tactical vehicles, or the National Guard, or even the Coast Guard. And you do a request, we do it through the mayor, via you guys. Early enough, and they'll say yay or nay, and then they'll tell us what they tasked to do it, and then we can have some nice little vehicles going down the parade as well.
but I just wanted to add to that, same idea goes with elected officials. Because we've gotten requests, I feel like it's been a little late in the game for, people who I'm sure have busy schedules, and the earlier we send those invites out. the better
Or you're
chance we'll
talking
have
about,
them
like,
bring
you
you
know,
along.
Senators.
Yeah, whoever it may be.
And it will be an election this year, so. I'll be there.
And your date for the Veterans Parade, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're pretty much set, your date is your date, it's a Sunday before.
So.
For the prayer.
We have anything more on that particular subject? Okay, moving on to C, financial reimbursements. We never received reimbursements for the honorarium for the Veterans Day singer or for the school bus. And is that something that has to be voted on in order to get that?
Yeah, so, as it stands right now, the veterans, budget line item is overspent. So at your next meeting, we need you guys to have a conversation and vote on how you want to reallocate funding
Okay, to cover those line items, right?
to cover that.
We can move from one line item to another.
Correct. Correct,
Yeah,
as long as it's under $700.
Yeah, that's gotta go in there.
How
Um,
much?
Okay, on the moving past that, to the next item, discretionary fund. This is something we talked about. As a matter of fact, I sat in with Mike on the chair meeting and I asked, our town manager about that.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but Gary's mentioning something about the buses for the parade as well. That's part of something that is still outstanding. They're expecting us to pay it and we haven't made payment on because of the same idea. There is no budget left in that line item. So
Yeah, that's why.
that's a conversation that
Definitely
we'll
with that.
add to your agenda for whenever.
We
you
need to get this one, that's gotta be added to the next agenda, correct?
That along with the singing one, the singers
Do you
part
have
that
that?
you were talking.
Mr. Graham? Okay, the next item kind of falls in with it, at that chair meeting,
300 for the budget.
300,
Yeah, so,
Perfect.
right line item budget.
300 bill. I asked Mr. Peterman at that meeting, and he mentioned that in order for us to get a discretionary fund, it would allow the chairperson to be able to just go ahead and just cover that expense without having to move a line item, that a certain amount of money be allocated and have a true discretionary fund, and that's basically what it is. I believe Mr. Peterman has one. He used it at the last election to help with the writing the voting booth for the park. I believe it's the same type of item that we're asking for, but it has to be approved by council in order to do that. So we have to go to council and ask for that. I think it would be the job of the chair to go to that meeting and ask to be granted that fund.
And while you guys are talking about things that go to council, I'm just taking this opportunity to remind you about procedures. I'm going to council to request something on behalf of the committee. You guys need to bring a memo to your committee. Again, obviously, you guys know that no member of your committee can act on behalf of the committee. So you have to bring a memo to the committee explaining, as the more details you give to council, the better. So just a memo, and Jonathan can provide a template for you guys. We do have a template. The chair fills it out, brings it to the committee. You guys all review it. Hey, we agree, this is what we want. Once that's approved by the committee, now the chair can give that memo to Jonathan. We can add it on the council agenda to make sure you guys get it right.
Okay, we need to make sure that I understand this correctly. So in order for us to do this and to bring this to the council,
Or anything, just,
or anything to the council, okay, that, including the line items we have to move, this has to be in a memo brought and voted on at our meeting here. And then you would take that memo and bring it to
and
council.
we'll make sure to add it to the agenda and.
So it's on the agenda.
Yeah.
So that's 4 items, go, we need to vote on.
And
all
just
this stuff.
to be very clear, because you're mentioning the items, again, it's after 700 is when you guys have to go to council. If you move
Mhm.
under 700, it's fine. All you need is approval from the committee, you're fine.
Yeah, that's part of the rule.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
it's
the only
24
thing that
budget
we would need-
requests.
Right,
The
right.
only thing that we would need to bring to committee would be to have the discretionary committee, to have a discretionary fund.
Yeah,
be
because
real
that's a
discussion.
new,
Right.
that's sort
It's a
of,
new
that's a
item.
new line.
If we're ready to move $700,
Can we put $700?
But if the budget line item,
All that, it didn't work.
the idea is that a
It's not
budget,
the same, here's an example, okay, we sent flowers to less than a year ago. And what happened was the town didn't approve sending flowers for whatever reason, and that was the end of it. So the expense was incurred by the chair. And had he had the discretionary fund as a true discretionary fund, it wouldn't have been in question. That would have been covered.
Would just
Well-
the committee would need to vote if it's okay to get it from the.
In other words, once,
discretionary fund and-
in the discretionary fund, once the chair, okay, we want to buy coffee for the guys working in the parade. That's it. It doesn't have to be voted on, it doesn't have to go any further. The chair has the authority to go ahead and buy that $100 worth of coffee, or whatever it is, without having to go back to the town for approval.
I think
Yeah.
three things that you need to keep in mind. Your budget is taxpayer dollars. That's number one. Number two, if the chair is purchasing coffee for veterans, that should come out of the veterans line item. And number three, the flowers that are in question, that's not really a committee function, right? Your committee function, you have to go back to your resolution that created, and what's your mission is to help veterans, to promote veteran activities. Sending flowers to, whoever is not a committee activity, it's not a committee function. So although you may agree to send flowers, perhaps you have to do it privately and say, okay, we're gonna collect $5 from each member, $10 from each member, and we're going to agree as a group of friends and committee members to send so-and-so flowers. But it's not a committee function.
Point well taken.
And that's why the budget office did not approve that
It's a
request.
point well taken, but to carry it one step further, it shouldn't have had to go into the budget item, or on the discretionary item. Example, when Mike bought coffee for the people working at the parade, I don't remember what the exact amount was for whatever, but it was an amount of money went out. And this wasn't, it was for veterans working on the Veterans Day parade.
Right,
And it should have been something that could have been handled very easily by him just saying, okay, I'm gonna, like a petty cash fund, almost the same thing. When I worked for business, when I was a manager, I had a petty cash fund. I wanted to buy lunch for the guy.
Thing is, that's not his.
That's why.
No matter what.
pay your money.
I gotta say, I know what you're saying. Claricel is basically, it's the same rules that apply to the federal government apply to the state government. You have the Anti-Deficiency Act, right? And federal taxpayer money has to comply with three things. I have lived this for 32 years, with millions of dollars. You have to have a purpose that is legislative and approved. Our purpose is in town charter. You have to use it within a certain amount of time, meaning within the fiscal year. And it has to be what we used to say, the right color of money. It has to be money that was appropriated for that specific use. So when we make these line item budgets, all right, those line items are the specific use aspect. So to move things around, we're lucky we can even do that. Because in the federal government, you couldn't move jack. You just, suck wind, buddy. And so we're lucky we can even do that. So I think we need to be really tight with how we use this money. If we're gonna buy, coffee, we need to be able to feel that there's an actual government purpose for us doing this. So we are within the charter and we're not running afoul of and any kind of anti-deficiency rule. Because the laws that apply to federal also apply to state.
Bill, just in
And as
conversation,
far as slush funds go, let me tell you how they worked in the military. Because, you know, they were outside the anti-deficiency act, but they were basically, everybody just chipped in.
I got
You
a
know,
question, Bill.
Like when I got a plaque, you know how I got my plaques? I would pay for mine. Because I didn't want any young lance corporal or captain who paying for a colonel's plaque.
Just a question, how then is it that the town manager have the authority to go ahead and hire a writer to write on an item that was up for vote at the last election?
Well, probably because,
$24,000.
because, probably because it was approved by the town council and the purpose was
I don't,
for an election purpose
it wasn't
and
approved by
the
the town
town
council.
council.
It was his fund.
Well,
We had up to
but you already had that, prior approval.
Correct.
You
And-
can't vote because not, all- I mean, that was a voting issue. That was a voting issue. It wasn't, it
It was
wasn't.
based upon the election and.
Wait,
it
the
was
town,
based upon-
against Bill, the town, you couldn't be grand marshal, okay? Because the town felt that it was a voting issue coming up where you were running for council. And this was a voting issue, okay, where that.
I think those are apples and oranges.
They're not.
But I mean,
Fund
because
was
here's the
approved.
thing, the election, the council had approved for a bond issue to be on the ballot. And so inherent in that authority is what is the language that's going to be used to promote or, you know, this bond issue? Or to describe the bond issue, to put the bond issue on the
Not
ballot.
promote it,
Not
but
promote.
describe it.
Let me check my, maybe correct my statement. Partially. Anyway, so what was the language that's gonna be chosen to be using to describe what the bond issue was? So he was within his authority based upon the council saying, we want a bond issue on this to be on the ballot. He was within his authority to hire somebody to figure out what the descriptive language was.
It was a wordsmith, it was a wordsmith.
However, look, but it's perfectly legal because it's within the authority. And so that's the purpose, now the purpose, you know?
All of that is correct.
I'm just asking, and I'm sure it could be defined that way, but if you read it, what the wordsmith had written there, it was.
No, I read it. I understand what you're saying. That's why I said initially, you know, promote. You know, and then
It's not
somebody corrected me and
Not
said,
supposed
it was supposed to be
to describe.
you know, but in either case, it was defeated, so it's neither here or there.
And if it does promote, then it kind
Yeah.
of violates the
Yeah.
objective,
Exactly right,
which
So
needs
that's,
to be
you know,
corrected by the
exactly
council.
right. And that's one of the things that actually was addressed by one of the councilwoman addressed the issue of it. The language seemed to be biased towards one way and they had to correct it and make it less biased. So there was back and forth on that.
Okay, I didn't know, you know much better, you were in that arena. So in any case, all right, my answer to the question, that seems that I'm a little bit off on that, and I'll not say any more about it.
Since we're on the topic of reports, we're scheduled in March. For
Scheduled March 8th,
Oh,
Veterans Committee report to council.
March 14th, the deadline.
Oh, excuse me, March 14th,
Internal.
deadline.
Well, yeah, the
input
Dennis
is 3/8.
important one, so.
Okay, and then again in August 8th, with the deadline of August 2nd.
Do you have a template for that? report?
Okay, next
Well,
item, number
assuming I'm
10,
chair.
number 10,
Yeah.
the discuss the storage.
If you're willing to take it, we can assume that you're gonna get checked.
The storage containers are displayed for the Veterans Committee flags. I believe the storage containers was already taken care of by Jonathan a while back. They're not the right size, but it's okay. They
it's
work.
done, right? They're happy.
The second thing, the other part of
Flags.
the flags, we need to talk about, that we need to vote on the next meeting. The flags that we presently purchased for the Veterans Committee. The idea was originally to either put the flags on display, either here or at the Mary Collins Center. Or, right, or the second thing would be if those flags were not going to be on display, they need to be kept in a storage container of some sort. So that they don't get mildewed and dirty and kicked around the warehouse where they are right now. Because right now they're in danger of being damaged. So that we need to get that on the next meeting to vote on, to get containers for those.
Can we add also for the agenda for next time to open up the door for the benefactor for the person. And I have a lot of ideas about what it is to work.
Oh, great.
Since we have a
$300
meeting where we're now
for
voting, I
the-
wanted to add a suggestion
I
for you
think we
guys.
got that.
It's always helpful, I'm sure some of you are aware, to add agenda items whenever you want to add agenda. Well, now's a good opportunity because he's here. But just in the future, if you want to add agenda items, make sure to give them to your liaison well in advance so that you give the chair time to put the agenda together.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, be here.
Going back to the agenda item that we didn't talk about what the dates are for the events this year. Okay, which we held in abeyance
Yeah.
in December, and we're going to talk about at this meeting, and now we have to talk about it in February.
It's only 2 weeks
Well,
from
you
now.
can, Bill, you can talk about it now if you wanted to, we still got a few minutes.
You can,
Well, I think I would rather be able to get like an annual calendar out
Yes.
Right.
and then pass it out to everybody.
and you guys, I believe Jonathan
We
has,
started-
he has the tentative. one.
We have a tentative one.
Yes.
But it's
It was a discussion about.
Out of respect for the agenda, like to Claire's point, the agenda is generated, and that's why I'm saying try to get it out in advance. Whatever agenda items you want to see, one to give the chair a chance to put it together and give it to us. But really, whenever there's it's not best practice, do the girls with these additions on the spot. However, I know sometimes it's called for, and that's why there needs to be a vote for that.
Okay, so
And that's just not part of your agenda.
let me just sum up what everyone's been throwing about. All right, so one, review the annual
Calendar.
calendar. Two, request for community support. For veterans parade. And also, I guess VIPs, politician dignitaries.
Yeah, it's something for you guys to keep in mind.
Yeah, okay. The earlier the better. We gotta move items on the line item on the budget to cover the singer and the bus,
The buses.
the buses.
And what's the other $50 or $300?
I think it was originally one of the minutes here says 50.
I think
The
that's for
honorary.
the singer.
For the singer. We should have the final numbers of reindeer run net
By February.
by February. Yeah, next meeting, correct?
Yes, February 2nd. That's the
Alright.
first Thursday.
Um, let's see. Did I miss anything? What, you said something about containers and flags?
Right.
Containers for the flag.
Yeah.
We need containers. I know that I saw it in one of the.
We need some sort of mechanism to protect the flags, if we're gonna leave them in the warehouse, or to put them somewhere else where they're protected. Do the flags come with covers and everything? Yes. Huh?
We've got two broken glass labels on top, right?
Oh, you mean the, okay. Yeah, we probably need it. Am I missing any other agenda, possible agenda item for the?
You know, there's one other thing I wanted to bring up. We're allowed to have additional items. You know, it was quite a problem with the minutes this past year. There were five meetings. I think there were 7 altogether, but 5 that we didn't have minutes for, and we had people that were designated to take those minutes, and for whatever reason, they weren't done.
You want to summarily execute them or?
We need somehow, like, what we just did here, Bill, you sat down and you played like you were the secretary, and you reviewed at the end, to make sure you had all the items down there for the minutes. I mean, maybe that's something we should take at the end of our meetings in the future and do to make sure the secretary has all that stuff down, so we don't run into this again.
And I just want to mention, though, if you have the secretary run through everything at the end, you might take away a lot of your meeting time doing that. Just something to keep in mind, because the idea is that those minutes are reviewed at the next. That's when the committee is supposed to. I think best practice, what I've seen with the secretaries that do the best job at this is they either bring their laptop or they're taking notes as they go. If you're waiting to do it later with a recording, that is pretty stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's better if you're doing it as you go. And I mean,
That's
and
what I-
whoever the secretary is can, you're more than welcome to stop for a second. Guys, there's a lot of commotion going on. Can you please repeat who was the first? Okay, who was the second? Okay, then vote and like do it very clearly and that helps the second. It helps when a lot of people are not talking.
Could
about
maybe
it.
at our next meeting, because you are liaisons, but maybe at our next meeting, just to ensure, could you kind of go through it with the secretary to make sure it's done in that fashion? Because we've had sloppy minutes all along and missing minutes, and we need help in that area. Jonathan, rather, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's gonna be helpful for everyone, I
Yeah.
think, because, yeah, we've had a lot.
That's
of
what we need guidance.
And something in the beginning that you can do, and I think it happened because we ended up having a lot of meetings, obviously we had a lot going on, is your secretary, although they are assigned to do that job, may not be present in the meeting, it happens. It is the responsibility of the chair and really of the committee as a whole to make sure a secretary is assigned for that meeting to cover.
We always had one. We always.
It's like the 1 December minutes. I had those, I had the notes, I just, it's like December became a crazy month and I didn't do it.
But
wasn't
it's just, yeah, as a
Right.
committee as a whole, you have to keep each other accountable. It happens, one person can have anything happen.
Right.
But you see that.
Good, but it's not.
That's completely unfair. That's not a good use of time.
Yeah,
And
I'm not complaining.
eventually, like, I brought this up to the new rules, I just only have one pair of missing minutes, because like we had 7 at one point, if you have another meeting, you're gonna do 8 minutes. So if you're trying to backlog, you're gonna keep that 7, you're gonna miss, again, you're gonna have 8, like, and these are public records, that if someone said, hey, I want the minute from January 6, 2022.
Right.
And we don't have them, that's a problem. So that was kind of like, all right, I have to be really serious and guys, we can have this meeting, so we can missing this, which is
The honorary for the singers, it's on the September 12th meeting, it was recommended at $50.
Right. Honorary.
So you know, I had that.
I think he's got it. He's got it.
For the 300.
Yeah, I already got, I got the agenda for next month. It's review the annual calendar, request the meeting for the veterans parade, VIP for as well. Move budget, to cover bus and singer. Final numbers on the
And the
Ranger run and container supply.
And get the benefactor of the proceeds.
Martha, you've been very quiet this meeting. You've been very quiet this meeting.
I have been,
That's all we will know, yeah.
I'm just taking it all away.
She's absorbing. Before we adjourn, is there any additional items anyone wants to put out there? Bill?
you guys can add anything to it.
I already got
The den that you can let him know.
Anything else you want to say? Good.
Like, please.
We make a motion.
Familiar, well,
We can't vote.
but are you guys familiar with like the new rules of somewhat updated committee rules?
We want to
We've all
clarify.
see the rules.
I know.
But it's.
You've got a question becomes if you read.
Yeah.
There has.
You know what,
We don't want anything to come of
I
the
think it would be a good idea to review them.
When's the next meeting?
February 2nd,
At,
Thursday,
at what time?
the third,
Okay.
our regular.
So why don't we send on the menu, we ask everyone to please review please review where the next meeting. Then we can discuss it.
I can resend it to you all and highlight. what
Right,
I think
let me- Look, the attendance thing has been changed, I guess. It used to be where if you missed 3, you were.
There was an issue about people being removed. And
Yes,
then maybe there was issue with the minutes and
So
whatever.
The main thing is you can have excused absences and still remain, correct?
Technically, you can remain. It is up to the committee or the chair to bring up, if there's an issue, now you're meeting quorum, you're not meeting quorum because somebody's disrupting that attendance for you guys. That's an issue that needs to be talked about with your
I'm the
council.
chair, you guys are UA. Don't be able.
It's 6:30, right?
Part of the problem is. having a
And I'll
meeting at
put
5
a
o'clock.
reminder.
Well, this isn't normally your meeting time. This is.
Yeah.
But today, that's part of the problem. We have to have a meeting. The
Yeah,
meeting has to be at a time that people can get here from work.
And just so we're clear, you're usually, I know that they've changed now, but your special callers of committee meetings were not part of your, what would fault you in attendance. It was
the other
usually your
big one,
regular
the other big change is the duties of the secretary. You have 3 business days prior to the next meeting to submit the notes,
Your minutes.
the notes from the last
It
meeting.
used to be 7 days. That was,
Now it's
that was more policy, but now we're more in accordance with the sunshine law.
But it's 3 business days.
Right.
So,
Very clear about.
So
that.
if we have a meeting, on Thursday, we should get the minutes at least by end of day Monday.
Yeah.
Because then Tuesday morning, we can stitch a public publicly noticed agenda and have it out there 48 hours in advance. We're not asking a week in advance anymore because, you know, it wasn't followed.
Wasn't working.
Same thing, well, now the agendas only have to be sent to you within 3 business days prior to the next meeting.
Which gives time, if you guys want to
It was
add
the
an
week before,
item,
wasn't it?
right, which
And the secretary is the one who calls the offender.
we couldn't really enforce because sunshine is 48 hours.
I got that.
Posted. But it also gives you guys time to, oh, I want to add this item, let me send it to my liaison. I'll send it to the chair, and then we have 3 days before a meeting, which I don't want to get complacent with that. Oh, I have to have more time, but it's a little more,
If we, Jonathan, if there's an item that comes up, if we're asked like additional items, can't we, at the meeting, go ahead and bring up an
You can
additional
vote
item?
on it to have it, yes.
in the rules, it says that, like, you should have these items before the agenda is publicly noticed. But if you have to add an item, then you can do that. And we did.
Now, is
But you have to vote to add the item, and if you don't have a quorum, you can't vote.
I think tonight is not best practice. We should really talk about whatever is posted. It's just emergency.
I recommend everybody read clerk's oath background section.
I did. And Veterans Day Parade, November 5th.
All right.
Great.
Walk away.
Time to go.
Mike, if you're watching,
And I'll save these in our drawer.